Honestly, at first did not want to watch this movie, or I just wasn't super interested in it. I'm not a huge JLo fan. I know some of her huge hits. I've loved some of her movies as well. I just wasn't too interested in seeing her side of the halftime Super Bowl performance. It felt kind of like a very specific thing. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zelini. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and their miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. So today I want to talk to you about a new pop star documentary. You know I love that subgenre of documentaries, and that is Halftime, a documentary produced by Jennifer Lopez about her co-headlining performance at the 2020 Super Bowl. So let me start with my usual question. Is Halftime worth watching? I still think maybe they should have had a better name for this movie, since it does show other parts of her career, and a big point of this documentary is showing that JLo is the front woman for several different huge careers in entertainment, particularly between being an actress and being a pop star. So I feel like the Halftime title made me initially believe it was just about the performance, which I enjoyed the Super Bowl performance as well when it aired, but I thought the documentary was going to be just about that, and that's probably why I wasn't so interested. So if you feel the same way and don't really care about the Halftime Super Bowl stuff as much, then it might still be worth a shot. It covers a lot of different aspects of her career, mainly the press and some of the filming of Hustlers, sort of the end of the Hustlers era for her. It also covers JLo's background and history of her career, which I think is pretty interesting and important for this. Shows different milestones of JLo's career, shows the scrutiny that she's been under. So the documentary spans a lot more than just the Super Bowl. But the movie did exceed my expectations that were generally low-ish or medium. I appreciated seeing JLo's side, and it made me respect her career a lot more. It shows a lot about how she's fought to be taken seriously and respected, and she's truly a wonderful and talented entertainer. She gets a lot of shit for maybe not having the best voice or not being the best actress, but it does feel like she gets picked on a lot, and social media and the internet and the tabloids are just super cruel places with a lot of issues, so it covers some of that. If you just like seeing behind the scenes content of things, then this is a great movie. Or if you like pop stars in general, it's just always fun, at least for me, to see just the cogs in the machine, the man behind the curtain, you know, all of the analogies about what it's like to be a pop star. The movie does have an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's fresh. Critics are kind of mixed on it, but like mostly positive. So I'm happy for JLo, and I enjoyed Halftime a lot more than I expected. So let me go into my recap of the movie. I'm just gonna go in order this time. One note I will make about the whole movie. It's a technical aspect, but it is wild because I had the same issue with Marry Me. You can check out my review of Marry Me on my YouTube channel a few weeks back. Marry Me was JLo's most recent rom-com and big movie that she starred in. In that movie, there was this very strange lens that they would use that would make the outsides of the frame blurry. Maybe I can try to simulate it here. This is what the lens looked like. I think it is a camera lens issue and not a editing or post-production issue. I think they're just using this weird lens. And then it was also in Halftime, so I don't know if JLo is just really obsessed with this look or just paid too much money for this lens and really wants to get her money's worth out of it. I don't know, because this lens is awful, and in Halftime the lens is even more exaggerated and blurry than Marry Me. Like, Marry Me was just the beginning of the weird lens. It was really upsetting because the content behind the blur was interesting and cool and important, and I was just so distracted by this stupid lens. So I don't know what's going on with JLo's camera lens preferences, but I am not a fan. Thankfully, not every single scene and shot had this lens on it, but a significant portion did. The movie starts out on July 2019 and we see JLo celebrating her 50th birthday. It's still wild to me that she's 50 and it looks the way she does. I mean, why should a 50-year-old woman have to upkeep herself so much, like, just to be worthy and worthy of leading roles still and stuff? But regardless, she's celebrating with her daughter there. We see her. After this, we get JLo's family history. She talks about when she first fell in love with dance. She said out of her siblings, she was the athletic one. Her mom really loved musicals, and that's where JLo fell in love with the idea of being a triple threat, singing, acting, and dancing, and that she admired Rita Moreno from West Side Story a lot. That West Side Story represented New York and where she was from. In her youth, she did focus a lot on dance, and to the point where she neglected school, and her mom was very upset about this, and JLo ended up leaving her home at age 18. And she got her first little big break in the entertainment industry in Living Color. It was interesting to see JLo's family history. I definitely related a bit to it, and it was interesting to see how she did have like kind of a difficult relationship with her mom. Throughout the movie, we do see her mom in general, so it seems like they're on good terms now. So from here, we cut to February 2019. So going back in time a little bit, JLo is preparing for Hustlers and the pole dancing scenes. She shows a lot of bruises she has. I think throughout the movie, JLo showed different aspects of her life where she shows a lot of dedication to her craft, and I think that was the point of showing this very rigorous rehearsal scene on the pole. This segment is all about Hustlers, so we see a little bit of the set of Hustlers. We see the director, Lorraine Scafaria. I don't know if I said that right. We see some of the Hustlers press tour, and then we see the Toronto International Film Festival premiere, and there's a standing ovation. A lot of great and positive reactions to the premiere. From the beginning, there is Oscar buzz, and at the end of this segment, they show this moment where she's in a group text with her family, and the family is like only caring about the Jets. I'm assuming the Jets are football. I don't know, but basically JLo is trying to celebrate that her movie is getting amazing reviews and her family's just in the group chat like, go Jets. The next segment of the documentary is starting with the NFL and how the NFL has been struggling with backlash, a lot of negative press around their racism, their treatment of Colin Kaepernick. They show a lot of those headlines with the backlash, show images of Trump and Mike Pence at NFL games. We have an interview there with Benny Medina where he explains the situation with the NFL and how they were looking for a halftime act that could help their image in this way. Because JLo is on the press tour for Hustlers, she is having to dodge rumors about the Super Bowl act because there were a lot of rumors that JLo was going to be the halftime performer. And then eventually we see the announcement of the halftime performers, and the big twist is that Shakira is also going to co-headline. And it's not the usual case where one artist is bringing in a guest. It is two separate artists both headlining and having to split the time. I do think it was super shady to have to split the performers in this way. They just had half the time of a regular show, and you have to share the stage. You have to figure out how to weave your songs with their songs. We see JLo have a phone call with Shakira where they're both really nice to each other. I remember at the time there was some like negative press about JLo being shady at Shakira, not promoting her side of the headlining. It looks like behind the scenes, JLo and her whole team were upset just in general that they didn't give them extra time if they're gonna have two co-headliners. In the phone call, JLo and Shakira are talking about the time allotted. The entire Super Bowl performance is gonna have to be between 12 and 14 minutes, and JLo comments that they should have given them 20 minutes total if they were gonna have two artists co-headline. From here we get into the part where JLo explains that typically she has not wanted to incorporate politics in her music or her career in general. There's a clip of her in an interview saying she likes to sing about love and not politics or social issues. Nowadays it has changed and she's afraid for the future of her kids, the future in general. She doesn't recognize the current United States she is seeing under the Trump administration at the time. And she specifically mentions the cages that became notorious at the detention centers at the border, seeing how a lot of families at the border were being split up. And she says that it had a profound effect on her, and it made her feel a responsibility to send a message with her performance at the Super Bowl. She talks about how Shakira isn't convinced about ending with Born in the USA for the performance. To me, this does seem kind of like a random choice at the end. I mean, it worked out really well ultimately, and it had the impact, so I had to just trust the process on that one. JLo said that Shakira responded like, "But I wasn't born in the USA." And JLo was like, "It's fine, everyone wants to be when things are good." I don't know if I agree with her on that, but it sounded like Shakira was open, just not convinced. After this, we see Thanksgiving at JLo's house with her family. We see her mom, her dad, her sisters. She talks a little bit about growing up around strong women and how her mom just had really, really high expectations of her. And JLo actually admits that their mom would hit them as a disciplinary tactic, which I wouldn't say is uncommon for those generations. I definitely found this part a little relatable, not the hitting part because I'm of a different generation, but just the mom having really high expectations in general. There is a lot of that in Latino families. It's a thing, and maybe it's part of why JLo is such a hard worker and perfectionist. She talks about how it did shape her to be really tough, and her mom shaped her to be really tough, but man, at what cost is what I wonder. The movie then goes into talking about JLo's big break, which is Selena, how that performance was critically acclaimed and it started her movie leading lady career. Plus, with the momentum of the Selena movie, she used that to start her pop career as well. There's a point where she has like the #1 album and the #1 movie with The Wedding Planner. But here they also talk about the tabloids and their negative impact, how they're so focused on JLo's love life. They show a bit of the P. Diddy era and the Ben Affleck era. They show a lot of clips of comedians that are so disgusting. It's always in these pop star documentaries, you get the worst clips of the awful shit comedians say. There are some very unfortunate clips from South Park, which I hate South Park. I know it's beloved, but I think it's overrated. For this segment, we even get a small clip of a Ben Affleck interview, like now Ben Affleck talking about how JLo has told him that she expects to be disrespected like this all the time. And he's like, wow, who would have thought? Well, I shouldn't say hate. I don't have that big of an opinion on Ben Affleck. I guess I've never seen like a great movie of his or anything. But he just seems like the epitome of like a mediocre guy. Like I feel like he is just so regular looking. And he gets praised as like this amazing leading man type. And I'm like, why was the conversation never, is JLo out of his league? Because she is. So from here we see the continuation of the Hustlers press tour. A lot of praise continuing for the movie. She talks about the pressure of the Hustlers role and how it felt different from other movies she has made because it was heavier and the character she was playing was so much more complex. I did see Hustlers, and by the way, I stand by all of the positive acclaim for it. The only thing I didn't like was that there was a character that threw up a lot, and I hate seeing throwing up, but that is much more of a personal issue. But the movie itself was amazing, and JLo's performance was awesome. Like, I need to rewatch it because I haven't watched it in a while, but like, it was a great movie, and it just had so many great female characters in it. It had my girl Keke Palmer. It was a great movie. And she talks about how nervous she was filming that opening pole dancing sequence, which is one of the most memorable for me from the Hustlers movie. When you first see JLo's character, and I think it's the first time you see her, and you're seeing her at her peak performance of like the pole and the stripping. If you don't know, Hustlers is about strippers. This opening performance that JLo does is so amazing, and it was the point in Hustlers where the movie had me fully on board. It's early on in the movie because it's the introduction of Ramona, her character. Her body looks amazing. The cinematography is great on it. The choreography is great. Like, just her skill level is awesome. So, not that I know that much about stripping, but me as a regular citizen that is not an expert in pole dancing, this looked like really awesome pole dancing. But she talked about how nervous she was to film that scene in particular, that there was so much writing on it and so much pressure, and it's not the same as the stage. It's like more vulnerable and a little more naked. It's not fully naked, but you know what I mean. So it was really cool to see some behind the scenes on that epic scene. They also show a little bit of her filming Marry Me with Owen Wilson. I looked into this movie a lot when I was doing my video, so go check that out. This part of the movie is really just trying to show how busy JLo is. She is wrapping up press on Hustlers, she is filming Marry Me, she's recording songs for Marry Me that are also part of the movie, she's hosting SNL. We see her FaceTiming her kids and be like, I've heard you've been having nightmares, which I was kind of debating if this moment was scripted, and there was a lot of this halftime documentary where I felt like it was a little bit over the top put on by JLo. See, that's the thing, like, she's a great actress, and I feel like some of the inspirational moments and off-the-cuff type things on it felt a little more like lines that she had carefully crafted and written out and memorized and said in that moment, which I don't blame her for. Like, I think she got across everything she wanted. Like, the movie had a lot of these like JLo reflecting moments, or these moments that seem spontaneous, but I'm not so convinced that they are. So this part where she's FaceTiming her kids and it's like, I've heard you've been having nightmares again, felt a little like one of those. It doesn't take away that she sacrifices a lot as a mother of not seeing her kids and having this very strange job. But I do suspect there is some dramatizing of things to get the point across. That's all. I couldn't help but feel JLo as having a bit of Valerie Cherish in her, and if you know, you know. If you watched my favorite show of all time, The Comeback, you know what that means. Especially when JLo is building up about these awards and her team is really wanting her to win, and JLo, you can tell she really wants to win the awards. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's great for her to care. Like, it's cool to care, and I know in general, like, caring about things is seen as like a weakness or cringy, but it makes sense. She's had this long career that is deserving of recognition. So I liked those moments in halftime where I feel like I could read between the lines a little more and see, even if she says she doesn't care that she lost an award, you can still tell that she does. You can feel it in her body and her face. And that to me feels very like Valerie Cherish. Like, even the persona she's putting on for the documentary is a performance. And I think for a lot of people, and especially very polished artists like JLo, it's hard to actually show the real you, even in this real, raw documentary, supposedly. It still didn't feel fully like the real her. It's just a hard thing to do, and not everyone can do it. Also, after seeing her be super busy, we see her doctor tells her to slow down. Shout out to the doctor. He had the funniest moment in this whole movie. JLo tells him to go see Hustlers, to see her in her new movie, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take my wife. And JLo's like, oh, it's a little dirty, so just be warned, but you'll like it, it's great. And he's like, I'm 70 years old, it doesn't matter. Like, just so matter of fact. Next, we see some dance rehearsals for the Super Bowl, the music director trying to find the right mix for the show. This is one of those parts where JLo says it's the worst idea in the world to have two headliners, and it's no shade at Shakira, it is just hard to condense someone's entire career into 6 minutes. Then we see her Golden Globe nomination announcement, which is a big win for JLo. You can tell how excited she is despite her trying to play it cool. It was one of these Valerie Cherish moments where she's like, oh no, I just woke up, I haven't heard that I got nominated. And it's like, yes, you have, girl. I can tell. But it's really sweet. Her entire team is super celebratory. A celebrity like JLo has a huge team around her, so it's a big deal for everybody when there is an award nomination or win. She's also still figuring out the Super Bowl choreo. There's a lot of juxtaposition in this part of the movie between going from Super Bowl to Hustlers Press, Super Bowl to Hustlers Press, flying back and forth, trying to like campaign for awards for Hustlers and do press, and figuring out the choreo. She's trying to incorporate a bunch of kids into the Super Bowl performance, so she goes to see how they're doing. The kids are really cute. They're like little girls. Something about dancers, just in general, not just children dancers. There's something so camp about taking movement and art, like body expression, so serious. Like, I love that. So JLo has a meeting with the Super Bowl team trying to pitch her ideas for the show, and she pitches the artistic cages she wants to put on the field to represent the detention center cages and make a message about the US and immigration. She also wants the stage to be like a woman symbol. It's funny because the NFL guy starts arguing back like, I want to push back on the woman symbol stage, and she's like, oh, I thought you were gonna say the cages. So the cages were the more important part. The woman stage, I mean, the woman symbol nowadays is kind of outdated, and I think that's what the guy actually at the NFL guy was trying to say. The woman symbol to me seems like a previous generation big symbol and now isn't as prominent, but correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not quite sure, and I don't know all the history of the woman symbol. She also mentions the choice that she wants to have her daughter sing Born in the USA at the end. When I first heard this, I was like, girl, you're just trying to get your daughter up there, but the daughter is a good singer, so that was important for me to know. So next we get a segment about how JLo has kind of been sexualized throughout her career, how she did push barriers for curves on women and larger butts to be very direct. They talk about that, but also how she's been sexualized. There's that guy interviewing her that's like, so tell me about your butt or something, like just straight up says it like that. And JLo's like, did you really just ask me that? It's so annoying because it's the same guy, I swear, asked Britney about her boobs or something. This man is a menace, I swear. They talk about the iconic Versace dress that invented Google Images. I was glad that this was part of the documentary. I mean, it is an important milestone for JLo and a big accomplishment to say a dress you wore invented a whole feature that is essential to our technological lives today. We see a commemorative Versace show at Milan Fashion Week that is honoring the dress. And JLo walked in the dress again and she looked gorgeous. She was actually shocked because Anna Wintour said hi afterwards, and Anna Wintour doesn't talk to anyone apparently at these shows. I didn't know that was a thing. So finally we see the build-up and tension of going to the Golden Globes. We see her pick out her dress and get ready. Her private chef team waves by at her from her home. Ultimately, she ends up losing. It's funny in these documentaries, like, I was there when these things happen, but by the time the documentary comes out, I forget who won the Golden Globe, so I was like, I hope JLo wins the Golden Globe. Sadly, she did not win the Golden Globe, and Laura Dern did. Which, does Laura Dern need another Oscar? That's what JLo's team was saying, basically. They didn't say that, but that's what they were saying with their eyes. JLo is too, but it's clearly, like, her team, because, and I totally, like, empathize or sympathize. The one where I haven't been through this, so not empathize. It must be so different when you have an entire team of people and creatives and artists and support, like administrative support, like all of these people behind you that made that art possible. The main artist getting an award is the whole team getting an award. I imagine for JLo and a lot of these huge stars, it's not as much of an ego thing. I'm sure like they feel like they deserve it and there is some ego there, but it must be so annoying to have like all your team excited for you and excited for an award and then losing that. Like, it just adds like 20 something, 30 something more people that are feeling like they lost. That seems so annoying, and such like an annoying part of being a celebrity is just how many people depend fully on you. So I can only imagine that that's just a lot of pressure and adds a lot to the disappointment of a loss. And it made me rethink like every person that's lost an award ever and be like, This is sad. I mean, the whole documentary builds up why it is disappointing for JLo not to win and how she's been torn down a lot of her career or diminished. So it was particularly meaningful that JLo finally was getting this overdue recognition. There's one point where she's FaceTiming a friend and cries that someone gave like a really nice review for like Glamour magazine. It's heartbreaking in a way because, I mean, of course, I don't feel bad for JLo. She has a very cush life and she's very rich. But she's generally very grateful in this movie, though I do feel it's a little bit performed. But she seems like a nice lady. Like, I think she's just maybe a little basic, but she's deserving and she works really hard. I mean, just to maintain like a killer body in general and then add on her age and being a mom and having a million careers, like, I get it. She deserves the awards. Okay, I'm losing the order a little bit because they keep jumping back and forth from like award show stuff and NFL stuff. So I want to finish out the award show parts of this. After the Golden Globes loss, JLo is anticipating between her Super Bowl rehearsals to be still nominated for an Oscar, and then she gets snubbed. We see a lot of clips of outlets saying that was the biggest snub. It was unexpected that she wouldn't get nominated. People are trying to speculate why she might not have been nominated for an Oscar. One publication said that maybe it's because she's known more as a celebrity than an actress. We get some of JLo reflecting about what she does and that she does what she does not to just look pretty. She does it to help people, like, to bring joy to people, bring entertainment to people. And it feels to me like JLo is a quintessential, like, entertainer. She also talks about how in her 40s, Hollywood rejected her a bit, which is such a common thing for women in Hollywood. Maybe I'll do a whole video on this at some point. I've seen a lot of fictionalized versions of this, including The Comeback and a show like Hacks, which I've watched more recently. Seeing how Hollywood treats aging women and how unfair it is, of course. I mean, JLo is interesting because she has preserved herself enough to still look younger than she is. But typically what you'll see in Hollywood is women are discarded around their 30s and 40s. And then they come back in maybe their late 40s or 50s to do like mother or grandma type of roles in Hollywood. When they were in their 20s and 30s, they were perhaps leading ladies. I've obviously thought a lot about this because my favorite show, The Comeback, is commenting on that exact thing and how Hollywood hates women in that middle area between them being a youthful leading lady, fresh-faced girl to being like a mom and grandma. I feel like JLo has fought against this by preserving her youth and her body and looks so well that she's not necessarily playing mom and grandma matronly roles at all. She is still holding on to the leading lady. But even JLo, who looks like she does, struggled with getting roles and getting opportunities in her 40s or after she herself became a mom. And she talks about that. She talks about how she did American Idol during that era when she wasn't sure she was between in her career. I'm glad she commented on that because it's something I am curious about and something I'm increasingly wanting to really write out and make a video about at some point. Also, by the way, I did an interview way back on my channel with Munfarid, who was a contestant on American Idol while JLo was there. So I'm only 2 degrees of separation from JLo. Back to the Super Bowl stuff, and this is a final thing. So a big thing in the final moments of Super Bowl prep is that the NFL people keep trying to cut time. They keep pushing back on JLo's ideas. The very day before the show, they try to pull the cages out of the show. JLo puts her foot down and is like, absolutely not. We're not changing the show a day before, and I don't care. I feel like this moment's getting a lot of praise, though it did get a little bit of controversy because she has a passionate phone call with whoever NFL stickler is pushing back on her. And she's like, I'm trying to send a message here for my people, and I don't want to be just shaking ass and belly dancing. Some people online were mad that she equated belly dancing to shaking ass in that statement because that was seen as like shade at Shakira and shade at the art of belly dancing as well. I really don't think that was the intention, even though it didn't come out wrong or wasn't the most thought out statement. That's what I feel from watching it. In one of these rehearsal days, we also see Shakira there popping in and out. She's not like cut out completely of this documentary. We see her rehearsing with JLo, trying to rehearse that final moment. There's this one really subtle and sweet moment that felt really real. JLo's son comes up to JLo and Shakira and meets Shakira. Shakira's like, I have a son too. And they're like, oh, how old is your son? And she's like, oh, he's 7. Actually, he's turning 7 tomorrow. I'll miss it. And it's just this like, oh, such a real heartbreaking, subtle moment where Shakira just like accepts the sacrifice she's making. She doesn't have time to be sad about it. That moment just felt so real and sad, but it's like, that's what it takes to be a superstar of the caliber of Shakira or JLo. JLo is lucky that she gets to have her kids. I mean, she incorporated her daughter into the performance, but that she has her kids there. I mean, Shakira is international, so she's from Colombia, and I assume that's where her kids are, if not in like Spain or something, because isn't she married to Spanish guy? I don't know. Anyway, I really felt for JLo when she got emotional about her daughter being part of the performance, and something she was emotional about was that like her daughter Emmy wasn't nervous to be up there because she was with her mom. And it was so true. Like Emmy, I don't know if she knew how big the Super Bowl is, but she didn't seem nervous at all being up on that stage, being lifted on the thing, rehearsing her part of the song. It was really cute, honestly. So finally we close out the movie on the Super Bowl day. We see a lot of JLo's performance because we had seen a lot of the dance rehearsals, so it was interesting to see directly how the rehearsals translated into the final performance. The final segment does cut out Shakira's parts of the final performance, but again, I don't think that was shade. I mean, Shakira was part of the documentary earlier and was chill. I assume at the end they did not want to pay for the rights to Shakira's music to put in this documentary, and they just cut around her parts. It's fair enough, and if Shakira put out a documentary about preparing for this halftime show or about her career, I would absolutely watch it. I definitely grew up a lot more listening to Shakira because I am Mexican, come from a Mexican family. Shakira is an even bigger deal in Mexico. Also, in the documentary, they didn't show like the Bad Bunny and J Balvin part, so that's why I'm saying it's no shade. I think those songs are just super expensive, and you're not just gonna pay for them if they weren't part of the build-up rehearsals. I went back and watched the full performance, and it was just so good. I remember in the moment in 2020, it's weird that it was in 2020. It was so cool to see a fully like Latino performance at the Super Bowl. I remember my group chat was on fire that day. At the very end of the movie, we do see JLo go to the Joe Biden inauguration. I think this part of the movie is meant to show like the end of the Trump era that motivated JLo's political activism, or her wanting to incorporate politics into her message. But I hated seeing that inauguration part. JLo did great. JLo did great. I've thought that since the inauguration happened. I just hated this part because it was like so dystopian looking. Because I mean, it's January in DC. It's all gray. Everyone has masks on because there's a pandemic now. Maybe that's weird, but I hated seeing the inauguration part. It just felt creepy. For a lot of reasons. I just mean like how the ceremony all looked. It felt very dystopian. It felt like literally the Hunger Games. So that was the halftime movie. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think? Did you find anything super surprising about it? I would love to hear about it. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.